Welcome to Train Signal. This is the Protecting Windows 7 Computers with Windows Updates lesson in the Windows 7 Administration Training course. In this lesson, you'll learn all about Windows updates and why they're important. We'll start by talking about why you should update Windows and the different types of updates that come with Windows updates. You'll get a look at the Windows Update Control Panel applet and learn how to configure some important update settings. You'll learn how to review update history so that you know what's been installed, and you'll then get a look at deciding which updates you should install. Since not all updates are created equal, you'll also learn how to uninstall updates, and then learn how to use the Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer to see what you should be doing as far as updates goes. You'll get a look at WSUS and Windows updates and understand the difference between non-WSUS based update operations and WSUS operations. WSUS is Windows Server Update Services, and it's available in a domain environment in Windows, and it's a free Microsoft add-on to Windows Server. GlobalMantic takes Windows updates very seriously. Keeping Windows desktop computers current with the latest security patches is vital to the company efforts to keep systems and data secure. Windows computers require regular updates that are designed to plug security holes and to correct other flaws. Windows is a massive program. It's not perfect. It does have bugs. Windows Updates is designed to correct those bugs. GlobalMantic can't afford to hire enough people to simply walk around and manually update each and every Windows 7 desktop, so you'll learn how to show users how to do their own updates and how to configure Windows updates to happen automatically. GlobalMantic does not currently use a WSUS server to do updates. Instead, Windows updates are configured to automatically install on user desktops. From a business need perspective, centralizing updates keeps the total cost of ownership at a reasonable level. You don't have to have someone walk around and do updates when you can configure each desktop to do it themselves. Updates are a critical component for an organization's overall security strategy. Organizations that don't update will eventually fall victim to flaws in Windows. The ability to roll back updates is key, however, because not all updates are perfect. Some introduce additional problems that have to be corrected. So you have to be able to roll back an update in the event that it breaks something that you need in the organization. First of all, why do you have to update Windows? After all, Microsoft goes through a long release cycle that includes betas, alphas, and even release candidate versions of Windows to make sure that it's releasing a product that's stable and reasonable. No matter what, all software contains flaws. Even with the best of intentions, Windows will always ship with holes that weren't discovered during development. Windows Updates is designed to fix these flaws as they're discovered. Some updates also add new features and capabilities to Windows. Now, Update is not limited to just Windows. Other Microsoft products, including Microsoft Office, can also be updated via the update mechanism built into Windows 7. There are three kinds of updates that you should understand with regard to Windows updates. Important updates are the ones that should be installed immediately in order to counter potential security or privacy threats due to holes that were discovered in Windows or other software. These include security in what Microsoft labels as critical updates, and they need to go immediately to all desktops. Recommended updates are updates that may improve system reliability or improve information, such as that found in a system help file. Basically, they're not absolutely critical, but they're nice to have. These might add new features to Windows as well, or maybe other Microsoft software. Optional updates are often include new driver updates and might include new versions of trial software. You don't always need optional updates because if a piece of hardware is working, why update the driver? And it might break it. So unless the driver is adding something significant, you can opt not to install these optional updates. Windows Update is available via a control panel applet, and the options there provide control over how Windows Update works. If you want to use a manual update install process, you can click the Check for Updates button in the Windows Update control panel applet. You can manually install updates by clicking the Install Updates button if updates are available for your computer. If you click the category name, either Important Update or Optional Update that we saw before, you can get a list of the updates that are available for that particular category. And we'll be going over to our Global Mantix test system here in a couple of minutes to take a look at the Windows Update Control Panel applet. When you configure important update settings, you decide when you want to install updates and how it should happen that those updates get installed on the machine, and a few other things. If you choose to install updates automatically, updates are installed every day at 3 a.m. or as soon as the computer is turned on for the first time that day. You can also opt to have updates simply downloaded, but then you get to choose whether or not to install them. Windows will notify you that updates are available, and then the user has to decide whether or not to initiate the process for updating the computer. You can also have Windows simply tell you that there are updates available, and this user is simply notified that these updates are available. They're not downloaded, nor are they installed without user intervention. Finally, you can decide to never check for updates. This is not recommended, as your machine won't be protected against potential security holes in Windows. These are the 4 update options you have with regard to Windows updates. Here's a look at the Windows Update settings screen that we're going to see in just a minute over on a Global Mantix system. You'll notice we have this system configured to install updates automatically, which is the recommended setting. New updates are installed every day at 3 a.m., although this is a configurable item. You could decide to install new updates weekly if you like. For recommended updates, you can get these updates the same way you receive important updates. So you can either uncheck this and not get recommended updates, or you can include recommended updates in this update process that happens every day. If you want to allow all users to install updates, you can keep this checkbox checked, which is the default, which will allow anyone logged into the computer to install updates on the machine. When you update Windows, you can also use Microsoft Update to look for updates for other Microsoft software that you have on your computer. And software notifications, you can get detailed notification when new Microsoft software is available. That's not enabled by default. Let's go over to the Global Mantix desktop now and take a look at some of the Windows Update settings in the Windows Update Control Panel applet. Here we are over on the system named GM-7-075, and we'll go to the Start menu, Control Panel, and choose Windows Update. Now you may be looking at a category view and control panel on your own systems. I actually changed to small icons so that I can actually see what settings are available without having to go through a whole bunch of layers. So I'll choose Windows Update, and you'll see that if I click Check for Updates, it's going to check right now for new updates. There are 1 important update and 35 optional updates available for my system right now. If I click 1 important update, it'll tell me exactly what that update is. The Windows Malicious Software Removal Tool x64 for 64-bit that was available in May 2010. This tool runs 1 time to check my computer for infection by specific prevalent malicious software like Blaster, Sasser, MyDoom, and such. After installation, you may need to reboot your computer. As far as optional updates go, there's another update for Windows 7 for x64-based systems that corrects a problem with secure digital cards that are larger than 32 gigs. It's an optional update, so I don't necessarily need to install it. There's also a whole slew of language packs, and since I don't speak all of those languages and they just take up additional space, I'm not going to install any of those optional updates. If you want to, you can go ahead and click Install Updates Now. So I'll click I accept the license terms and then click the Finish button. And you'll notice that right now we get a little window that says Preparing to Install. Windows Updates creates a system restore point before it installs any new updates. In this way, if the update goes bad for some reason, Windows can roll back to a pre-update point and bring your system back into working condition without you having to panic too much. I'm going to pause the video while this update installs and we'll be right back. And we're back. And as you can see, the updates were installed successfully. And again, none of the optional updates were installed, only the update that was really necessary for system protection. It tells you the last time that the system was checked for updates and the last time updates were installed. And here you'll notice that we receive updates for Windows only. We're not receiving updates for other Microsoft products yet. Understanding what you're installing for the future is only part of the equation. You can also review an update history on your Windows 7 machine by clicking the View Update History option in the Control Panel applet that we just saw. You can get more information about specific updates by right-clicking the updates and choosing View Details. If you look at your screen right now, you'll notice that there is a window that shows you a list of updates that were installed on this particular sample system in the past. And here we get a look at a particular update and all of the information about that specific update that we had when we installed it originally on the system. I'm going to go back over to our sample machine and we'll take a look at the history of the updates on that system. I'm going to click the View Update History item over at the left-hand side of the Windows Update Control Panel applet. And you can see that there have been a number of updates installed on this system since it became into existence. If you're interested about what a particular update included, right-click the update and choose View Details. You'll get a window that tells you exactly what was included in that update, what date and time it was installed, and what type of update it was, and whether or not the installation was successful. If you would like more information about the update, you can also click the link that will take you right to the knowledge base article about the update. As you can see, this was a critical bulletin that came out that was a vulnerability in Windows that could allow remote code execution. The update that we installed protected our system against this particular problem. Every update is linked to a Security Bulletin article that you can go read to get more information about that update. It's possible that you might want to prevent a particular update from installing automatically. After all, some updates have problems and you may find out about a problem before you download an update. You may also have software that you know conflicts with a particular update. You can actually hide an update so it doesn't appear in any update lists. Later on, if you change your mind, you can unhide updates so that you can install that update later on. You would use the Restore Hidden Updates option to do so. We're going to go back over to our Windows 7 machine right now, and we're going to take a look at how we can go about preventing updates from installing by hiding them and then unhiding them later on. So back over at our Global Mantix desktop, I'll go to the Start menu, go to Control Panel, and choose Windows Update. Now I know for a fact I don't want a lot of these updates that we had on the screen here, so I'm just going to select all of them. And I'm going to right-click and choose Hide Updates. Now, when I click OK, it's going to tell me there are no updates available for my computer, because there's no updates that I really want to install. I don't really want all those language files, but one of the things I did do was accidentally hide an update that I do want to have. So I can click the Restore Hidden Updates option, and I can unhide Update for Windows 7 for x64 systems and click Restore. When I do so, I get told that there's one optional update available. And when I click this link, you'll notice that I don't have all these other links that we had below. I don't need to have all those update files sitting there, so I hid them so I don't have to see them all the time. So that's how you can hide individual updates and then unhide them later on if you need to. So I'm going to go ahead and install this update now and click OK. And it's going to tell me now that I can download and install my selected updates, so I'll go ahead and click the Install Updates button to begin the installation. And you can see that it's downloading and installing updates just like it did before, and it's creating that restore point just like it did before as well. Now for this particular update, I have to restart my computer. So I'm going to click Restart Now, and the system will restart just like it should. Now what happens is after Windows starts to shut down, it does the Configure in Windows Update process here. Once the updates are actually complete, the system shuts down and will then reboot and come back to a login prompt momentarily. So we're back at a command prompt. I'm going to reboot. I'm going to log in, hit Control-Alt-Delete. And I'll log into the domain. Now, when I go to Control Panel Windows Updates, Windows is up to date. There are no updates available for my computer at this point because all the ones that I don't need anymore, I've hidden. There's another Installed Updates window that's accessible via the Windows Update Control Panel applet or the Programs and Features Control Panel applet. What we saw before was a list of a history of the installed updates, but it's a little bit different than the installed updates window we're going to go see now. Frankly, I don't know why Microsoft hasn't combined these two windows, but that's for them to decide and us to figure out in the meantime. When you're viewing a list of installed updates on this new window, you can right-click an update and choose to uninstall it. You may have a problem with an update that you need to uninstall that update in order to correct the problem. We're going to go uninstall the update that we just installed in order to correct a problem we're now having with secure digital cards at the GlobalMantix desktops. So I'm going to go to Start, Control Panel, Windows Update. I'm going to click View Update History, but to remove an update you have to go to See Installed Updates. I'm going to go back first though. The update we're interested in is the update for Windows 7 for x64 based systems, Knowledge Base Article 976422. So we'll go to Installed Updates. And you'll notice that the first item here is a hotfix for Windows, Knowledge Base Article 976422. I'm going to right-click this hotfix and choose Uninstall. And I get a question that says, are you sure you want to uninstall this update? I'll say yes. And this process can take several minutes. Now again, I'm going to have to restart my computer, so I'll go ahead and click Restart Now. And again, it's going to go ahead and do the Windows Update process after the logoff, be sure no files are open. And then the machine's going to reboot just like it did before. And you'll notice right there before the Control-Alt-Delete logon prompt came, you saw a short thing that said Windows is updating. So there's a two-pronged process to these Windows updates. Sometimes they happen at shutdown time. Other portions happen at startup time. So we'll log in again. And we'll go to the Start menu, Control Panel, Windows Updates. And we'll check for updates. And now we're seeing that this one optional update is available again because it's not installed anymore. So it actually did uninstall it just as we asked it to. The Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer version 2.1.1 has been updated to provide support for Windows 7 and Windows Server 2008 R2. This tool is available for download from the link you see on your screen. It provides a way to identify updates that might be missing from a Windows installation. However, it also points out other security holes, such as misconfigured accounts or accounts that may have no password expiration in place. We'll go over and install this tool, I've already downloaded it, onto our sample machine, and we'll see what it can tell us about GlobalMantix. I've downloaded the 64-bit edition, English edition, of the MBSA Setup tool, and I'll double-click that tool right now. I do want to run it, so I'll click Run. And I'll click Next on this first page, accept the license agreement, and click Next again. The destination folder is accurate, so I'll click Next. And then I'll click the Install button to go ahead and install the application. The setup is completed, so I'll click OK. Then I'll go to the Start menu, and I'll choose Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer. and I'll scan my local computer. What computer I want to scan? GM7075, and I'll just click the Start Scan button here. There's all these options you can choose, but I'm just going to take the defaults and we'll move ahead with that. Specifically, you can check for Windows administrative vulnerabilities, weak passwords, IIS administrative vulnerabilities, SQL Server administrative vulnerabilities, and security updates. And if you click this Learn More About Scanning Options item, you'll open up a help file that tells you all about what all of this stuff does for you, and I recommend that you do that. Now, it's downloading security update information from Microsoft so that it can stay current and make sure that you're getting the latest information about the scan. New information flows into Microsoft all the time, so it's important that the Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer continually receive updates from Microsoft to make sure that you're getting the most current information available for your own scan. And here we go. Here's the report details for this machine. The computer name, the IP address, the security report name, the scan date and time, which Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer version did the scan, 2112.0, and the sort order. We're going to start with worst first. So you're going to notice there's a red mark next to Office Security Updates. There are 13 Office Security Updates that are missing from this machine. There's an entire service pack or update rollup that's missing as well, meaning this machine is at high risk for potential issues related to Office. If you want to get more information, click Result Details, and that'll actually open up another window that tells you about all of the updates that are missing for Microsoft Office. Microsoft Office 2007 Service Pack 2 is completely missing, which would correct a lot of these issues. Now, it tells you more about than just updates, however. Password expiration. There are 3 user accounts that have non-expiring passwords. Well, click Result Details. Here are the 3 accounts, local accounts, that have non-expiring passwords. Administrator, Guest, and Local 1. I created Local 1 earlier in this course. That can be a security risk because non-expiring passwords mean that it's easier for people to guess passwords over a longer period of time. Everything else was fine with this particular report. However, it does tell me some user accounts have blank or simple passwords. So click Result Details to find out. The local administrator and guest account both have weak passwords. However, they're disabled. So it doesn't matter really that much that there's an issue with their passwords. The local 1 user is just fine. For automatic updates, what was scanned? If you click what was scanned, it tells you exactly what the process scanned, so you can get more information about what you're looking for. I highly recommend that you play with the Baseline Security Analyzer a little bit on your own, because it can be a pretty powerful tool. Once you have a handle on exactly what your updates look like and you've run the Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer to determine if you're missing any updates, you can start doing things like using group policy to configure updates across the environment rather than one machine at a time. I'm just going to go over to one of the machines that we've been working with, and we'll take a look at some of the update options that are available via group policy. So we'll go to Start and choose Run, and we'll type gpedit.msc. This starts the local group policy editor. Bear in mind that this is not the same group policy editor. Well, it is the same, but this is not going to allow domain-wide configuration. This is a local computer policy only. If you want to do this domain-wide, you need to do so on a domain controller and then associate the policy appropriately using the domain group policy editor so that it's enforced across a domain. I'm going to start with computer configuration, open Administrative Templates, Windows Components, Windows Update. You'll see that there's quite a few options related to Windows Update here. For example, You can enable Windows Update Power Management to automatically wake up the system to install scheduled updates. So you know that 3 a.m. setting, if the computer's off, updates won't install? You can fix that by setting this group policy or this local policy to wake the computer up so that an update can install after a deadline. How do you want to configure Windows updates? Right now, we're going to auto download and notify for install by default. However, we can change that setting across the system and across the domain by making other changes if we like. When do we want to do the installation? Every day or a particular day of the week? And at what time do we want to do the installation? Remember, by default, updates install every day at 3 a.m., but we can change that to be, say, every Monday at 3 a.m. if we like. Do you want to allow non-administrative users to receive update notifications? So these are a number of updates that are available with regard to Windows updates in Windows 7. Windows Server Update Services 3.0 Service Pack 2, or WSUS, is a centralized server-based tool that provides support for Windows 7 updates. This server-based tool centrally manages and distributes updates and keeps track of which updates have been installed to which machine in your organization. This is powerful. You want to know that updates are being installed on all of the desktops in your organization. Once installed, WSUS assumes responsibility for contacting Microsoft Update servers. This saves bandwidth, as machines no longer have to individually download massive updates. Instead, the WSUS server downloads the updates, and the local machines then get their updates from WSUS instead. Here's the way we've been looking at Windows updates up to this point. You'll notice that each individual computer downloads its own updates from Microsoft. And we've got 3 separate downloads happening for the different machines to get their updates. However, once we install a WSUS server, the local WSUS servers download and catalog updates. Each individual computer downloads updates from the local WSUS server. So, you have a one download item going on from Microsoft, and each of the individual computers that receives updates does so from the WSUS server. WSUS does change some of the behavior of Windows updates. It redirects automatic updates to a WSUS server. You want to make sure you do this if you put a WSUS server in place. And then you want to disable access to Windows updates so that only WSUS is used to do Windows updates. Now let's go back over to our Global Mantic sample desktop and take a look at how to do these two things. I've already loaded Group Policy Editor with the same place we were before. One of the items here is Specify Intranet Microsoft Update Service Location. And when I choose that option, you'll notice that the help item says that it specifies an intranet server to host updates for Microsoft Updates. You can then use this update server to automatically update computers on your network. If I enable this policy, I would put in the IP address or host name with an HTTP prefix for both the Intranet Services Update server for detecting updates as well as the Intranet Statistics server. Now, when this status is set to enabled, as it will be if you use a WSUS server, Automatic Updates client connects to the Intranet Microsoft Update service instead of Windows Update itself. At that point, it searches and downloads updates from WSUS or the Intranet server instead of Microsoft itself. Enabling this setting means the end users don't have to go through a firewall to get updates, and it gives IT an opportunity to test updates before they're deployed. As I mentioned, Global Mantic does not currently have a WSUS server, so that all the machines will go right to Microsoft. Now, the other item we talked about was disabling access to Windows Update if you do use a Windows Update server. To do this, you have to expand Computer Configuration, Administrative Templates, System, Internet Communications Management, and Internet Communications Settings. Here, you're going to find an item called Turn Off Access to All Windows Update Features. If this is enabled, Windows Update features are removed. This includes blocking access to the Windows Update website, all kinds of stuff. But in this way, users will have to go through your WSUS server in order to be able to get updates. There are no options, as you can see here. There is, however, a much better way to do Windows updates, and that's through the use of System Center Configuration Manager 2007 R2. System Center 2007 Configuration Manager 2007 R2 replaces your WSUS server on your network, and it does a whole host of other things as well, including deploying machines, managing machines, machine inventory, and much more. It also does software distribution, patch distribution, and it really helps you get a handle on management of your infrastructure. Unfortunately, GlobalMan 6 does not currently own System Center Configuration Manager 2007 R2, but if they did, they would buy the Train Signal course on this topic because it's incredibly powerful, the course and the tool. In this lesson, we covered Windows updates relatively in depth. You learned about why Windows updates are important and learned about the 3 types of Windows updates. You got to look at the Windows Update Control Panel applet as well as configuring important update settings. We looked at how to review update history and how to decide which updates to install, and then after the fact, what updates needed to be uninstalled if they were bad for some reason. You then got to look at using the Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer, which would tell you about some missing updates that could be potentially important to your organization. After that, you learned about why WSUS and Windows updates can get along, and what non-WSUS operations versus WSUS operations look like for an organization. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.